Well, it's one of our favorites now every spring training. The great Jim Duquette joins us from Sirius XM, and you can hear him every single morning here on the West Coast Power Alley. And I try and tell him it's Sunday morning when you have Sirius XM and you have the app, you can favorite it. The show that you do on Sunday morning with Jim Bowden, Jim Squared is recently, our friend Dallas Braden called it.
Yes, he's got it squared, man. We're going to have to do something, a copyright action or something like that for Jim Squared, because they kept referencing that, and I kind of like the sound of it.
I did too. That show that you guys do and the guests, because you get all of it's called the front office. You guys get all of the power brokers in baseball. It really is special because it's 2 hours of just knowledge. I mean, what you two were talking about the other day about just, this arbitration thing's ugly. I mean, we were just going through how a Rays player did a whole thread about how he was fighting the Rays for $200,000.
Right.
You guys were talking about Corbin Burns. Like, what are we doing? But you understand how the league wants you to set precedents. I mean, but is there a better way to do it? It's all that kind of stuff, the inside stuff that you guys give us that you can't get anywhere else.
Well, I mean, we've said it because we were in the room, and Bowden, he makes me laugh because he kind of sometimes forgets how he acted in that room. Like, he was so competitive, and he would crush his own players because he wanted to win. And so now he's taking a different take. He goes, I probably shouldn't have done that. Sean Casey, he's the mayor, right?
Yeah.
He's the mayor of Cincinnati, for crying out loud, unofficial. He crushed Sean Casey in the arbitration room. I think Sean is still bitter about it, but he would never say that to Bowden because he's like the nicest guy ever. But when you have to criticize somebody, the way I describe it is like this. You go into your boss and you go for an evaluation and a potential pay raise. And if they focus more on your negative qualities than your positive qualities, even if they give you a raise, how do you feel about it at the end of the day? Your natural tendency is to focus on the negative, and not everybody can handle that negativity, especially pro players, because they're not used to being criticized like that. So at the end of it, it's such a flawed process. We don't need it. We really don't. I think the players think they do, but we could negotiate a system that gives them and rewards them for the best players in the 3+ service time class and 4+. Somebody like Paul Blackburn as a starter, 3+ guy, he shouldn't have to go to arbitration. He was an all-star for the A's. Factor in where he fits into the pay scale and pay him appropriately and just move on. And it's not that hard, but yeah, players, the teams don't really want it. The players do, and so the teams are like, well, if we're in there, we're gonna go to win. And so it becomes acrimonious, like in the Corbin Burns situation sometimes.
I like the idea that you guys talked about where you have the league have a group, the union have a group, they fight it out, keep the team out, keep the player out. So whoever wins, you can't complain.
Right.
And there's no personal part to it, because what's happening, and it really sounds like, and you're right, if I went in there and I said, I got great numbers, I got all these downloads, we're the number one podcast in baseball, right? There's no question we're number one for all the teams.
Yeah.
But you want to throw shade on me?
Yeah.
I'm going to be angry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And they find everything wrong with, and it becomes nitpicky to some degree. Corbin Burns, in that particular case, the team said, he took it out as saying, well, we didn't get to the postseason because of the way he pitched down the stretch. He had a 10-start stretch where he had an ERA that was mid-4s last season. Well, the reason why, quite honestly, the Brewers didn't get to the postseason is because they traded Josh Hader and they didn't realize the impact on the clubhouse. A factor might have been how other guys performed down the stretch, Burns and others, but he wasn't the reason why they didn't get in the postseason. They disrupted the entire culture with one trade, like Jerry DiPoto did in Seattle the year before when he traded Kendall Graveman, and you saw that whole thing, and they missed out by a game or two in the postseason. So some of these GMs are finally getting the understanding that chemistry matters in the clubhouse, and that during the season you really shouldn't be disrupting it. And I think that moving forward, I think teams will be less likely to trade major league players off of their roster because of the impact that it has inside the clubhouse.
Well, if I'm using technology and I'm Amazon and I'm just putting products into boxes and shipping boxes, the data will only matter. But if I'm dealing with actual human beings, kind of shocker how human beings interact with each other and communicate and live together and travel together. That actually matters how that all works.
Well, some of these guys, some of these owners, and the general managers are guilty of it too, but they feed their owners like, listen, the chemistry is overrated. You can't, well, part of it is you can't measure it, right? That's a big problem when in the analytics world. What is a win worth, and what is chemistry? What is good chemistry? And we used to debate this to the end of time. Like, which comes first, the winning or the chemistry? Do you have good chemistry because you won, or do you win because you had good chemistry? No one has the answer to that.
Yeah.
Right. If you did, that'd be the secret. But, I know this, when you've been on bad teams, the best chance to get out of a bad cycle is if you have good chemistry. First time you don't have good chemistry on the team, what do they say? The first people that items that jump off a sinking ship are the rats, right? The rats are the guns that are gone. We used to use that analogy all the time. Those are the guys that you don't want in your clubhouse. So if you don't have any rats on your ship, you have a better chance of turning the course and maybe winning. So I don't know. It's for me. But some of these owners, like, they have real estate companies. Well, there's no building that's talking back to you, or they're not giving you feedback on the house that you just bought. So, when you have these interactions with human beings and they actually have feelings, they're like, boy, they're surprised that they got mad because you said that. What are you surprised about here? You don't have a feel for having communication with individuals. So I think that the general manager's role as part of this evaluation is also to understand what's important in the clubhouse. And not enough GMs, I don't think, have that feel, or they don't put as much meaning into it as I think they should. And I really think when at the end of the year, when we're sitting there in the postseason, we go, as we go and spend time at every postseason game. We're doing pre and post game for the LCS and World Series. There's usually one common denominator, and you can tell it as soon as you walk into the clubhouse. It's a great winning culture, and you see it and you feel it. It's actually palpable. And when you don't have good clubhouse chemistry, you see it, or I do, instantly. And so I think that if a team spent a little bit more time in that area, I think you might see some better results.
So we've been down here for a few days. We're talking to all these guys. We lost 102 games last year.
Yes, you did.
We were bad.
Yeah.
64 players used record in Oakland history.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I've seen, the confidence, the talent. I don't know what we win. We're not losing 102.
Right.
We are going to be better, and there are some gems in there.
Yep.
I think we surprised some people with some of the talent. I wish we still had Cole Irvin.
Yeah.
I got to call it as I see it. I think we'd be a better team with him. I thought he was a guy that would give us close to 30 starts, 200 innings. It really hurts, but it is what it is. But I think we will be better. You've now been here for a day. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you. And, I think that a little underrated aspect to the team last year was right at the beginning of spring training, you had a disruption with the trades, right?
Yes.
Olsen, gone. Manaea, gone. Obviously Murphy is traded in the winter, but that helps, I think, not having that kind of disruption now. And so you can focus on the team and you can kind of move forward and actually legitimately turn the page, which is what Mark Kotsay and the organization's talking about. But I do think that, like, Fujinami, his stuff is electric. We'll see how it translates on the mound in the command. I think he's exciting. And we know Caprillion and Blackburn are going to be, hopefully they'll be 25 to 30 starts each. And if those guys do that and Waldichuk ends up growing the way we think he will, and Sears at some point, some of the young guys, one of the things I wanted to try to get an answer on in here is, at what point are you going to look at your young players like Soderstrom, Geloff, those guys, and if they're ready, bring them up? And they said, well, that's going to be the great discussion. When they're ready, we think we're going to bring them up because they're going to be mostly in AAA. Well, that to me is some good news there in Oakland, that you actually have internal options that are legitimate, fun guys, and something that you're going to build long-term with. So I think that last year was the year that they bottomed out. In the outside chance they lost 100 games again, it will feel different, I think, because you could start to see, some of the progress that they're going to make and some of these young players come on the scene. So I'm with you. I feel like this team is better. They have a little more experience, with May in the bullpen. Obviously, we know what Jackson was last year. Like, I think their bullpen will be better. They had a lot of one-run games last year that they lost. So they only have to turn around a couple of those, right, to end up in the 90, somewhere in the 90s losses. And I think that's legitimate for them if they can stay healthy.
Is it a little different for you for when you come here to A's camp and it's not Billy Beane anymore?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I've known Billy for a long time. I think that the fact that he's kind of at that point in his career winding down makes me feel old too, because I used to talk to Billy. I felt like he was a mentor to me as I was coming up as a young general manager, but young executive along the way. And I think, listen, David Forrest and Billy Owens and that whole group now, it's time for them to take the reins and move forward. Hopefully the stadium situation gets resolved like they've talked about at the end of this year. And you can start to look at some of those things from a positive standpoint, no matter where they are, if it's in Oakland or Vegas, wherever. I know obviously the idea is to keep them there in Oakland. Let's hope that happens. But I'm surprised. I'm happy that Billy's gotten to that point in his career. But they've turned it over to a good group, as you guys know. They've been here for a long time and they don't have a lot of turnovers, which is nice.
In our game, we've talked a lot about this. We were talking a lot about it at the winter meetings in San Diego, where you start to see we've got a handful of teams who are spending and a bunch who aren't.
Yep. And
my whole thing about the CBA when we got out of it last year, I thought it was just duct tape. I'm not saying that all the players – no. We're leading up to a fight that's coming up here when this thing ends.
Right.
But as someone who's been around it, the economics of the game, how worried are you that we have – we got a handful spending a lot and a lot of people who aren't, and downhillers, they're not happy with the system.
Yeah.
Just are you worried?
Well, I always wonder when the owners are fighting among themselves. That's never a good sign, right? It's never a good sign for the commissioners, never a good sign for the sport. And I think that we have some time to kind of sort out over the next 4 years. We're not even a full year into this new CBA, and you're already hearing owners complaining about it. Now, if you go back 10 years, when they negotiated that CBA, right out of the gate, players were complaining about it. And then the next time they negotiated, which was 5 years ago, we all thought once it was negotiated that the players lost that one too. So they've had 2 cycles of losing these CBAs. And by the way, it played out that way. Like the owners had basically had won both of them. So it's time for the owners to kind of wear one of these days, And so I'm sorry, guys, you're going to have to figure it out on your own. No one's going to have sympathy unless, among yourselves, maybe you have sympathy, right? But the fans shouldn't have sympathy for billionaires fighting over billions of dollars. Like it doesn't really translate to the average fan or to the average front office. So, yeah, I think that's the hard part is right. The A's payroll last year is $40 million, and the Mets payroll this year without any taxation is $296 million. Like that separation is the largest gap I think I've ever seen, both in dollars and percentage. And so that's not good for the sport. What we do know though with Oakland and some of these other small market teams, that they've found a way to win. They just haven't been able to sustain it longer. So until they're able to figure out a way to share all the revenues, we're going to have this disparity. And I think even the commissioner said, hey, if we don't get the disparity of revenues situated, we'll never be able to have a salary cap whatsoever. So the salary cap is less meaningful. So I don't know. At the end of it, I don't think there's any desire to have a salary cap from the player side. I don't think we'll ever negotiate that. But I do think that in year one, there's always these rocky decisions that are made. Let's wait a couple more years and see if that still plays out and if the owners are still upset about this one. I don't see the Mets, by the way, spending where they're going to be, $100 million taxation rate every year. They don't want to. He doesn't want to keep doing that. He just realizes when he took this team over, it had a lot more to do than he thought. I think that's the interesting thing there.
Speaking of the Mets, and we'll end on this, as I tell everybody, as someone who's been in this business for about 30 years, Power Alley is my favorite show. I listen to it all the time. I listen to it on the range, when I'm putting, when I'm getting ready to tee off. I'm always tuning these guys in. So I recently took your partner to dinner down here. Yeah. I took Farron to dinner, which, taking Farron to dinner is not cheap.
It's definitely not cheap.
It's not cheap.
You should have turned that around and made him pay, but
not cheap.
Some other day.
But I always appreciate you guys taking care of us here. So we know the Gucci loafer story.
Yeah,
You
it's
never
still
know.
a sore spot in my lifetime.
So,
Yep.
do you have the picture, Cody, of the we have loafers that we are going to be sending you?
Yes.
We need to know your shoe size.
I'm a 10.5 shoe size, and these are faux Gucci loafers. He showed me the picture earlier, but I'll take any Gucci loafers. I've been waiting for my previous owner of the Mets to send them to me since I made the Roger Cedeno trade back in 2004. I saved him $500,000. You would have thought that he could have taken maybe $1,500 of those dollars and given me a pair of Gucci loafers like he promised. I'm still waiting for them. I know they're in the mail somewhere, but maybe until I get them,
since the Wilpons,
I'll put yours on.
Since the Wilpons did not take care of you, and you've been so good to us here at Ace Cast Live,
all right.
I took Farron to dinner. I'm going to make sure you get some loafers.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I will take credit for your low golf handicap. Since you listened to us, and we must be able to calm your whatever or maybe it's just a mindset to hitting the ball straight. If we can benefit that, then let's call it even.
Loafers are on the way, my friend.
I love it. Thank you for that.
Hey, seriously, I love your
guys'
guys' show.
Tony.
It's second
pleasure.
to none. And on Sunday, the front office, it is good as you're going to get baseball talk. What you guys do, I know that there could be a day someday you go back into front office work.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm hoping. For us personally, I hope it doesn't because I think your work is as good as it gets.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We enjoy it. We definitely enjoy it. And you at least get a reprieve. You don't have to see Farron today. So
it's cheaper.
It's a win all the way around.
Thank you so much.
All right, see you guys.